multicultural AFL football show. This week finalized the Sir Doug Nicholls Indigenous series of games. Richmond's shock lost the Kangaroos and their new coach Rhys Shaw. Collingwood at the MCG went down in a tie 1 to Freo in the last seconds of the game, but not without video review umpire controversy. In Alice Springs, Adelaide came from 41 points behind to beat the helpless Demons, while Brisbane, also down by 31 points and without a goal at the end of the first quarter, came back and beat the Hawks by a healthy margin. It was, however, business as usual at Geelong on top of the ladder, going 2 games clear and shock. On Monday, Brendan Bolton was sacked by Carlton with new coach David Teague. All this and more tonight. I am Vanessa Gatica and I'm joined by my 2 co-panelists, Javier Sincan and Gabriel De Angelo. Hello, guys.
Hello, Vanessa.
Vanessa, Javier.
Round number 11 got underway last Friday night from Marvel Stadium with the Kangaroos under new coach Rhys Shaw giving Richmond a bath. And Collingwood went down to Fremantle by a couple of points and that controversial touching of the ball that resulted in a goal to Freo after 2 field umpires and the video review failed to check the incident properly. And that amazing man, Michael Walters from Freo, 2 kicks, 2 weeks, 2 scores that won his club 2 games. Boys, what are your thoughts?
With that game, the North Melbourne and Richmond, I believe that's probably how the North Melbourne should play, and that's what we expected of them as well. Their usual suspects in the midfield, Zach Zibble, Ben Cunnington, Sean Higgins, they do their job in the midfield, and then Ben Brown up forward with the help of Mason Wood. That's it. It's as simple as that. That's all North Melbourne has to do, what they've done against Richmond. So I believe the real sort of inspiration came from Cameron Zohar as well, the way he tackled, and he's really sort of lifted the morale up. I think he sort of instigated every player in the team. And then, as we discussed in the last program, there was that emotional side of it to that game as well. I think that sort of played a part in North Melbourne toppling Richmond. And Richmond, we know that they've got injury woes, but still, they had their Trent Cotchin back, and if anything, that would have made the team better. But I believe North Melbourne were on a different sort of level that day, so that's what made them topple a team like Richmond. And I believe with Collingwood, I think we've seen them doing, although they've been playing very good, but there's still some patches they are winning, because they're good in some patches, they're bad in some patches. Bulldogs nearly bet them, they came back in like 4th quarter or so, then they won the game. Then the other factor was Brodie Grundy. I think he made a couple of mistakes, and I mean they were not there. But I would give all credit to Freo, the way they played. They came with the vision, and Michael Walters, like he's been phenomenal. Like he's
awesome.
More than anything, he's been lucky to be at those positions to make his team win. And he's a hero of Freo, and that has been a fantastic result and a good wake-up call for Collingwood as well. That they need to come out of their patchy sort of footy to come out and then play a consistently good footy, so that they to minimise any sort of danger they have to their premiership contentions this year.
Yeah, like just firstly on the North Melbourne game, I mean, for me, when I saw the match, the way that North Melbourne performed, it was just so different, just vastly different from the way they've been performing all year. And it just sort of made me think, well, why haven't they played like this during the year? I mean, it was completely different. Their tackling, their ball skills, everything was just completely different from what it was for the past couple of weeks. And I think, well, why is that? Is it because that they've got a new coach? Well, they've got rid of Brad Scott and have this new coach. Are they playing with a greater sense of freedom, a little bit more, not so much tied down to a philosophy, or they're not scared to make mistakes because Brad Scott might have been too hard on them or whatever? Or were players trying to sort of win over the new coach, that they wanted to win over the new hierarchy that might come in North Melbourne and say, well, whoever's going to be the next coach, we want to stay, we want to play. I don't know. It's sort of a bit like that. But also on the Collingwood game, you're spot on in saying that this was a wake-up call to Collingwood. I think saying that was probably perfect. It was a wake-up call, but also at the same time, the decision to not have their goal, that last goal as a behind from the touch. That was just another major mistake from the umpires, and we're sick of talking about the mistakes from the umpires, but that was a glaring mistake. But
the worst part is we're saying that it happened because of the camera. There was an error from the camera, and we are saying that they should take the help, like they should take technical help. If this is how it's gonna be the technical help, I'm not sure how we're gonna end the umpiring goals at the moment.
Yeah, there's no excuse for the error.
Yeah.
Melbourne and Hawthorn held big leads in their respective matches, but they lost with their opponents coming from behind to win. Javier.
Well, I believe one win was a team which is low on confidence, other one which is high on confidence. So Melbourne at the moment, they were ahead, but I don't think they had the confidence they can win.
Yeah.
So that sort of gave Adelaide a chance to sneak in the win, and they did. Because Adelaide, they want to prove a point, and this season hasn't been that good for them. So whenever they saw the opportunity, I think they came hard on Melbourne, and Melbourne didn't have any answers. Whereas Brisbane, like, they're high on confidence. They know they can beat anyone. They're thinking of now. I believe their top 8 position is secure. Now they're looking at the top 4. So they've got that hunger in them. And then to do that against a side like Hawks, when they are in that much front, I mean, it tells you heaps about their confidence level.
Yeah,
I believe that was a great game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that with that game, Melbourne should have won.
Yep.
They should have won, and that miss at the end of the near the end of the game, I think that a lot of people have been a little bit too harsh on that miss, because they had 8 chances and they only scored 1, and they missed 7.
Yep.
That just tells you the whole story of the game. Melbourne should have won that game. The amount of behinds they scored, they would have easily won the game.
Yep.
So there's a lot of pressing issues in regards to not just the way they perform, but the lead up to it, like why they're missing so many opportunities. And like you said, they do seem afraid to win. They're like, we're in a winning position. What do we do now? It's almost like they've forgotten how good they were last season.
Yep.
And you're right about Brisbane. Brisbane are an exciting team. They play such a good attacking footy. And I was sort of in the same boat when Hawthorn was ahead in the first quarter, and by such a good margin. I really thought, all right, we'll see how good of a team Brisbane are, and they proved it. They came back and won really, really well.
Yep.
Well, it had to happen. Carlton and their coach parted ways suddenly on Monday because the team hasn't improved as much as everyone expected. Was it the coach or the team, boys?
Well, that's a little bit hard to say, specifically, because when you look back, it's not just Brendan Bolton from start to end that's the whole problem. Because when you take into consideration the fact that the last five coaches in Carlton have had the worst records in the history of the Carlton Footy Club. So you take into consideration that. Also at the same time, some of those coaches, well, 2 of them in particular, were highly experienced and extremely successful. So you had people like Mick Malthouse and Dennis Pagan, who had very, very good careers, but ended rather badly at Carlton. And you have people like Brett Ratton, who was probably unfairly treated, and you've got Wayne Britton, who were a part of the club and still failed. And you've got someone who was outside of the club who's failed. So there's a lot of issues that are going on behind the scenes, and also, you know, player list management and the trades and all that sort of stuff. So Stephen Silvani may be someone that could be under scrutiny. So yeah, there's a lot of things behind the scenes, not just the fact that Brendan Bolton got sacked. There was more to it. Yeah,
I believe there was a talk with the Carlton of build-up, and everyone was involved, right from the president and everyone. So everyone was backing up Bolton with all that stuff. But I mean, there's a list management issue, there are other issues, and then there are skill issues at the moment as well with Carlton. So together they should have been, they should all share the responsibility at this stage. But look, they made a decision. Let's see how it pans out.
Yeah.
Thank you, boys. We will be back to discuss more after the short break. You are watching the Multicultural AFL Football Show. Welcome back. This week, only 6 games to play, with the team buys coming into effect for the next 3 rounds. Essendon, Fremantle, Hawthorn, Port Adelaide, St Kilda and the Bulldogs sit this week out. Friday night football comes from the MCG, where Richmond take on the Geelong Cats, and on Saturday 3 games only. Carlton, with a new coach, hosts the Brisbane Lions at Marvel Stadium. Gold Coast at home played North Melbourne, and Adelaide is home to the Giants. The only game on Sunday, the Sydney Swans play the West Coast Eagles at the SCG. Javier.
Well, I believe Richmond versus Geelong, I think it's gonna be cracker, especially because Richmond have lost, and hopefully they can get a couple of more players in, because they're on that verge of getting their players back. Let's see how we go, but we know that Gary Ablett is back, definitely, so that will make huge difference too. It's going to be a hard-fought game, I would say, but I believe considering that Geelong and Gary Ablett will want to make an impression on that, so I think it's going to be Geelong for me. And Carlton versus Brisbane Lions are, as you mentioned in the last game, that generally new coach wins the first game or so, and that happened to North Melbourne. Unless that factor plays, I don't see Carlton winning against Brisbane though. I would assume that with all the attention that they got, they will come in hard. Hopefully they do, and then then make a contest out of it. But I believe it's going to be Brisbane for me to win that. And Gold Coast Suns versus North Melbourne. Look, I think North Melbourne, they should thank the way things have panned out, and they've got the Gold Coast Suns. I mean, they're doing very well. They might do very well, but still, that's a team they can beat if they play like how they played. So I believe it's North Melbourne. I think they got their bit of confidence up as well. And although Gold Coast Suns will come at hard because their coach wasn't very happy with the performance against GWS, so they're going to come back hard. But I believe in this one, North Melbourne will prevail for me. And the Adelaide, I believe that's another interesting one. GWS Giants, I think they want to make a mark that they play well when they travel. So I believe they're going to come really hard on Adelaide, and whether Adelaide will be able to survive that, that's just the question. But I believe GWS might come on top for that one. And for our Sunday game, Sydney Swans at SCG against West Coast Eagles. I don't know. I think West Coast Eagles are too strong at the moment. It's not going to be easy for Sydney to win that one. I'm just going to go with West Coast Eagles on that. Yeah. So that'll be my tips.
Yeah, well, with Richmond and Geelong, I think that there are still a little bit of, there are some holes in Richmond. They're not as strong without the presence of someone like Rance, who is just such a figurehead in the defensive area of Richmond. They've got, the likes of Bashir Hooley and all that sort of stuff, and Dustin Martin slowly getting back into form. I can see why some people might think it's going to be a close one, but for me, I think Geelong, they're just too solid at the moment. I really can't see them losing this game, even though I think Richmond are a great side. Richmond are great, but Geelong with the likes of Ablett, Selwood, in such good form, and they've got good young players of Ruddy Goulet. I think he'll be playing in this one as well. So Geelong, I think they're going to be a little bit too sharp for Richmond. I think that what you were saying was right about Carlton and having that new coach, that maybe that they might win. But the fact of the matter is, any coach who's going to coach Carlton can't fix what's going on, especially in such a short period of time. I don't think anybody can, even if they get Ron Barassi back to coach Carlton, I don't think that he's going to perform a miracle. I think Brisbane Lions, they're just playing so good at the moment. Such good young players firing at the right time. I think Brisbane are going to win. They're going to win comfortably, not as badly as maybe some people might think, but I think that they will win pretty comfortably. Gold Coast and against North Melbourne, I think that Gold Coast, even though they're second last, there's signs of that there's life in the team yet. I mean, their performance against GWS, the first half was good, and then the second half was just one to forget. That was just really bad. But I think at home and against North Melbourne, who, I mean, let's face it, they only won because I think that they were liberated from Brad Scott. Players felt a little bit more freer, plus they want to impress the new coach. Let's face it, they just want to impress the new coach. So I think that played into it. I don't think North Melbourne are going to beat Gold Coast at Metricon Stadium, so I think Gold Coast are going to win that, and they need that win desperately, Gold Coast. Adelaide against West Coast, that's going to be a really good game. That's probably, I think, going to be the pick of the round, because I think, Adelaide versus GWS, that one's going to be a pick of the round. Adelaide, they were not convincing against Melbourne. They were lucky. They were lucky that Melbourne were terrible. So they need to be convincing at home against a team that I think is going to be probably one to actually make it all the way to the grand final in GWS. GWS, they're used to playing everywhere. I mean, a lot of the interstate teams are. So they're used to playing here, there and everywhere. And I think GWS felt good because they beat Melbourne at the MCG. That was the one that they had to get. They had to win at the MCG. I think that one's going to sort of give them the boost to beat Adelaide. And Sydney versus West Coast, just too good, too strong.
And on that note, we will be back to discuss the big one from the G on Monday, Queen's birthday traditional clash between the Demons and Magpies. So stick around. We are back again. On Monday, the Queen's birthday game between Collingwood and Melbourne. To me, it looks like a certain Magpies victory, guys.
Well, if you look at both the teams, yes, that is the case. But when you have such an enormous sort of occasion and all these big games where they got some association to the game, player and everyone sort of tends to play a bit differently. That's what I think. See, if you got some arch rivals against each other, they play with different emotions. There is different sort of animosity. There's different sort of carry. There's a drive to win that game. So I believe this game might have that from the Melbourne side, because I'm pretty sure there will be an introspection that what happened, guys. What really happened to us, because we were winning that comfortably, and then suddenly the other team comes from behind and then just demolishes us. Where are the loopholes? Whether they would be able to fix that woes which have been with them since the start of the season or not, that's a different story. But I believe this time Melbourne had a very good lead. So they really need to focus what went wrong. And we've seen that their midfield's been doing all right. It's not that they've been having disposals on eye, but they're not very effective at the moment, and especially up forward, they've got their main problems. Whereas I believe Maxcon gonna stand up to Brody Grundy in their ruck contest. Although Grundy is in probably at better level than Maxcon at the moment, but Maxcon been making his impression as well. Although I do think that Brody Grundy will come out on the top. But it's really the Melbourne forward. They need to work something out. And then they can't leave too much space at the back. Collingwood will thrash them. And Collingwood's going to come in hard because they've just had a loss. And that too from a team which was travelling from there. And Freo, it's not that good of a team that can come and beat Collingwood in MCG. So it's going to be really on their mind to beat the team that they got on Q's birthday. It's a big occasion, and I believe Magpie is going to stand up to it.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not 100% convinced that Melbourne are going to be as competitive as you say. I mean, I see where you're coming from, that the occasion is going to be big and it's a Queen's birthday game, it's tradition and all that. But take into consideration that a lot of the errors, a lot of the mistakes that the Melbourne players are making are from their most experienced players. Some of their better players that had an amazing season last season, they've been missing in action, or they've been doing a lot of really bad errors. I mean, Petrarca, we've expected so much better from him. A lot of people were saying that Petrarca's going to have this standout season. He's going to be probably the next Dustin Martin. He's going to be the one that could even potentially win the Brownlow medal. He's just playing so badly. And Max Gawn, he's been playing badly these past few weeks as well. He's another player where you just have to put question marks all over him and say, what happened to him? He was just so dominant last season, and this season he's just a shadow of his former self. Players like Todd Viney, they've sort of lost a bit of that leadership, that sort of strength that he had last season. It was good seeing him sort of lead out this group of young players, these young men, into the finals and into all of that. It was great, but this time around he just seems lost. When you consider Collingwood, their experienced players, De Goey, Grundy, they're just playing so well. Varco, they're those talisman, those players that just link everything together. They're the ones that are just so solid and so strong. And the younger guys, they learn from them. They say, well, I can't let my leader down. I've got to play well as good as they are. Whereas with Melbourne, there just doesn't seem to be that sort of leadership, that sort of strength from the more experienced players as well.
Yeah, it's just that what I believe is the way they played last year, they will probably find their mojo at some point. I don't know whether it could be occasion or something like that. They really need to. And I think, as I mentioned, McDonald, last year he was having fantastic year at the front. But this year, he can't see him there. Jones, like he sort of comes and goes. In few games, he's performed how a captain should be playing and taking the team forward. We've seen in their wins aside, but then they suddenly seem to lose their way a bit. Yeah. I'm not sure whether what's going on with Simon Goodwin. Like, is he not selling good stuff to the team? But they're not buying into it. Like I really don't know. But I believe they had a good preseason as well. There is no sort of excuses at this stage. Yeah. So. I don't know, but hopefully they come up with something on this occasion, on the Queen's birthday, where there will be like a lot more people tuning in just for the occasion, just for the day, public holiday, and they come up with a good fight, and we have a good game.
But yeah, that's the thing. Is it a mental thing? I sort of get the feeling that maybe Melbourne sort of had what Adelaide had last season, that sort of sense of, well, we had this amazing season, nobody expected us to do so well. This season, for sure, we're going to have a great season, probably going to be even better than last season. And they probably thought that, I don't know, I wouldn't say they were lazy, but a little bit complacent in the way they are. And a lot of the other coaches, a lot of their teams, they're studying Melbourne a lot more than what they were last time, because last time Melbourne was just really terrible. If I was the coach going up against Melbourne, I know Melbourne are terrible. I know we're going to win the game because they're really, really bad. Or they're just slowly improving their young players. But this is different. A lot of the players, a lot of the coaches are now scrutinising Melbourne a lot more than what they were before.
Treating them as a threat.
Yeah, they're a threat now. They're not a silly little team anymore. They're a proper opposition. And they have to understand that they're no longer the hunters. They're the hunted now. Yeah. That's something that they have to consider. And now people want to beat Melbourne. It's not like, okay, we'll just beat Melbourne and that's it. No, people actually want to beat them now, a lot of these clubs. So, you know, that could be something that is part of the problem, but who knows? No. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. It will be a great game, boys. Thank you. And that's all we have time for this week. You've been watching the multicultural AFL Footy Show all around Australia on the Community Radio Network, Community TV, on Aurora TV Foxtel. We are also online through the NEMBC's AFL Footy website. See you next week. I am Vanessa Gatica.
I'm Harbeer Singh.
I'm Gabriel D'Angelo.
And thank you for watching.